Okay, I don't know how this is going to be received, but we are doing presidential photos of John Fitzgerald Kennedy from listening in. And you can see there's Kennedy speaking into a microphone. John Fitzgerald Kennedy on the phone taking notes. I guess that was his autograph. It'd be good if they had them all together, but of course they don't. Caroline hiding under the HMS Resolute desk in the Oval Office, May 16th, 1962. Louis McNamara. Or if it's not him, it's. Oh well, I'm not going to guess. I know who it is, though. Alright, John Fitzgerald Kennedy. President Kennedy on the telephone during a campaign stop in McKeesport, Pennsylvania, October 13th, 1962. It's like Kennedy on the campaign trail. Kennedy at Harvard. Jack Kennedy signing a profile of his book While England Slept for actor Spencer Tracy, November 1940. President Harry Truman helps the Kennedy Senate campaign, Boston Public Garden, October 1952. And there, of course, is JFK and Harry Truman. Is that the Andrew Jackson statue in the back? Three presidents, one shot. Or maybe it's George Washington. Anyway, here's President Kennedy with John F. Kennedy Jr. at Valley Beach, Newport, Rhode Island, September 15th, 1963. Just a couple months before he died. Here we have President and Mrs. Kennedy with Ben and Tony Bradley, November 10th, 1963. They got everything in there. Excuse me. John F. Kennedy campaigns for Congress in the North End of Boston by the Old North Church and Paul Revere statue, 1948. That's cool. Very cool. Meeting with General Douglas MacArthur, August 16th, 1962. They look happy there. Let's see what else we can find here. Well, what do you know? John Fitzgerald Kennedy and Dwight D. Eisenhower, September 10th, 1961. Kennedy looked happy there too. So did Eisenhower. There's a good picture of him. Oh, it's in Berlin. This must have been when Kennedy went to Berlin. From behind, you can tell Kennedy standing at the podium. Right there. I can't read or speak German, so Ich bin ein Berliner. I can't. I don't know. I don't know. Meeting with Vice Admiral Hyman Rickover, February 11th, 1963. Politics. I think it's all politics, isn't it? Meeting with Governor Edmund Pat Brown of California, April 20th, 1961. Now here's the Kennedy brothers. Famous photos here. Robert F. Kennedy and John F. Kennedy at the White House. There's another one. President Kennedy conversed with Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy outside the Oval Office, October 3rd, 1962. I'd say that's accurate. Try to get through this pretty quick, not have too long a video. There might be people that actually want to see this. President Kennedy introduces his brother, Senator Edward Kennedy, at a Massachusetts Democratic Party fundraiser, Boston Armory, October 19th, 1963. I don't like Edward Kennedy myself, but that's just me. Civil rights. President Kennedy meets with Mrs. Medgar Evers and her children, Renee and Darrell Evers and Charles Evers, Medgar Evers' brother, on June 21st, 1963, 2 weeks after Medgar Evers assassinated by a white supremacist, Oval Office, June 21st, 1963. Huh. I never even heard of them. I guess I should have read the book first. Okay. James Meredith. I've heard of him. Escorted by John Doerr, Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights in the Department of Justice, Oxford, Mississippi, October 1st, 1962. President Kennedy addresses the nation on the integration of the University of Mississippi, September 30th, 1962. The photography that shocked the nation. Police dogs attack a protester in Birmingham, Alabama. The New York Times, May 4th, 1963. President Kennedy and Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson meet with the organizers of the March on Washington for the Jobs of Freedom in the Oval Office, White House, Washington, August 28, 1963. Martin Luther King Jr., President Kennedy. There's Lyndon Johnson. You can see his head sticking out. It's Martin Luther King Jr., Adlai Stevenson, and John F. Kennedy. Ambassador Adlai Stevenson, the U.S. delegate to the United States, shakes hands with Martin Luther King Jr., president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference at the White House on December 17, 1962. The meeting occurred as President Kennedy met with members of the African American Leadership Conference on Africa. Cuba. That's why the Bay of Pigs happened, because of this. Kennedy notes. I should have marked them all already on 10 minutes. President Kennedy addresses the nation on the Soviet arms building Cuba, October 22, 1962. More than 100 million Americans watched the speech. As he spoke, the nation elevated its readiness for a war, and nearly 200 aircraft carrying nuclear weapons were airborne to avoid an enemy strike. Over 100 million Americans watched that. That's crazy. President John F. Kennedy signs Proclamation 3504 authorizing a naval quarantine of Cuba, October 23, 1962. I'm not sure who that is. Prime Minister Harold McMullen of the Great Britain, and President Kennedy, April 5th, 1961. Sorry, I try to read it in case you don't get to see it. Now this is a meeting here, a cabinet meeting. I'm just going to scan over it. Which I may not even get any views on this, I don't know. People don't like history like I do. It's Harry Truman, John Kennedy. President Herbert Hoover, April 28, 1961, with John F. Kennedy. And he's looking rough there. The bomb. I can't make that out. He's on a ship somewhere. Somewhere, someday. President Kennedy signs the Limited Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, October 7, 1963. It's a month before he got killed. Of course, Lyndon Johnson was standing there. President Kennedy with NASA Administrator James Webb, January 30th, 1961. President Kennedy inspects rocket modules at Cape Canaveral, Florida, September 11, 1962. Nice looking models. Okay. President Kennedy tours the Saturn rocket launch pad, Cape Canaveral, Florida, November 16th, 1963. It's right before he died. Vietnam. I just say it because of the movie. French General, I have no idea. Yeah, they caught Kennedy in the picture. President Kennedy and Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy with John F. Kennedy Jr. and Caroline Kennedy, the White House, October 14th, 1963. Cool. And the world as it is. President Jacqueline Kennedy. Peace Corps Director. Sergeant Shriver, I believe that was his brother-in-law. There's Khrushchev. Recognize him. President Kennedy and Chairman Khrushchev at the Soviet Embassy in Vienna, June 4th, 1961. Left to right, U.S. Ambassador Thompson, President Kennedy, Chairman Khrushchev, and Soviet Foreign Minister. I have no idea. Hospital room prepared for Jacqueline Kennedy, Otis Air Force Base. July 63, that's when she had a miscarriage. I believe their son Patrick, I believe. There's Kennedy on PT 109 in the Solomon Islands. There's his crew. And there they are in the boat. President Kennedy is at the Resolute desk in the Oval Office. I believe Donald Trump used that desk too. Caroline Kennedy with her father in the Oval Office, October 10th, 1962. And this has been presidential photos of John F. Kennedy listening in.